My name is Vivian Ashford. I'm 34 years old. And until recently, I thought I was weeks away from becoming someone's wife. Instead, I discovered how peaceful silence could feel. My fiancé name was Ethan Mercer. He was 31. We lived in Charlotte, North Carolina, in a townhouse I had purchased years before I ever met him. We had been together for just over 3 years, engaged for 8 months, and our wedding was scheduled for late September. Looking back now, I realize Ethan had a pattern I spent years excusing. Whenever he hurt me, somehow he became the victim. If I asked why, he'd ignored me all evening. Suddenly he was overwhelmed. If I wanted to finish an uncomfortable conversation, I was making him spiral. If I asked for help with bills, errands, or wedding details, he would sigh dramatically and tell me life already felt heavy enough. Everything somehow revolved around his emotions. Even problems he created became problems I had to solve. I kept shrinking myself to preserve the peace. I asked for less, accepted more, convinced myself that stress explained everything. It didn't. The end came on a Thursday night. We were sitting at the kitchen island with our wedding binder open between us. His cousin had changed travel plans, and I simply asked if we should move our venue walkthrough. Ethan snapped his pen shut. Not angrily, not emotionally, just cold. Then he looked at me and said, "Maybe loving you is just too heavy for me." Something inside me became strangely calm. I closed the binder, then put it down. He blinked. "What? If loving me feels that awful, put it down. We're done planning a wedding. We're done." For a second, he stared at me. Then he laughed. Actually laughed. He thought I was bluffing. "Vivienne, stop being dramatic." He grabbed his jacket and announced he was going to his friend Tyler's apartment because he needed space. As he walked out, he threw one last sentence over his shoulder. "Don't do anything stupid." The garage door closed, and I started dismantling our future. I emailed the venue and froze our file. I lost the deposit, canceled the tasting, paused the photographer before another payment processed, removed the wedding website, released the florist from our date. Within an hour, our wedding existed only inside a binder and a handful of receipts. Then I packed his things. Not angrily, carefully. His sweaters, his sneakers, his shaving kit, the framed photographs he'd hung around the house, even the navy throw blanket he insisted made the living room feel warmer. Everything went into the guest room. Tun sprezeche, by sprezeche p. M. My phone buzzed. "Are you seriously still acting like this?" I replied once. "Once you told me loving me was too heavy." I listened. "Your things are in the guest room. Pick them up tomorrow, or this weekend." Then the calls started. 22 calls that night. 7 more by morning. The texts alternated between panic and blame. I didn't mean it like that. You know, I say things when I'm overwhelmed. You can't cancel a wedding over one bad moment. Vivienne, answer me. This is cruel. I didn't answer. The next morning, I changed the garage code and front keypad. Then, I totaled the damage. Over $3,000 gone. Still cheaper than marrying the wrong man. Around noon, Tyler texted me from another number. "He's hurting. Stop punishing him for being honest." I replied with 6 words. "Honesty comes with consequences." Then I blocked him. Ethan showed up the next evening wearing my old college hoodie. He started crying before I even opened the door. I kept it locked. "I just want to talk," he pleaded. "Talk from there." He said wedding stress had overwhelmed him. He said I knew how he got. I finally answered, "Yes. I know exactly how you get when you think I'll stay no matter what." His crying intensified. "So that's it? One bad moment, and you're throwing me away?" "No," I said quietly. "I'm leaving because you've spent years turning bad moments into my responsibility." He stood there, waiting for me to soften. I didn't. Eventually he whispered, "You're making the biggest mistake of your life." I looked at him through the glass. Maybe, but at least it'll be my mistake. He left. That night, For the first time in months, I slept all the way through. And what shocked me wasn't sadness, it was relief. No more rehearsing conversations. No more wondering whether a normal question would become an emotional crisis. No more trying to predict which version of Ethan I would come home to. At midnight, I made scrambled eggs, sat alone in my kitchen, and realized something terrifying. The quiet felt kinder than the relationship had felt in months. 4 days later, the flying monkeys arrived. First Tyler, then Ethan's older sister, Rebecca, then his best friend Nolan, who sent my favorite message of the week. Sometimes, men say hurtful things because they secretly want women to fight for them. I answered once, I'm not fighting for a relationship that requires me to ignore what was said out loud. No response after that. Meanwhile, Ethan started performing heartbreak online. Black and white selfies, quotes about invisible pain, posts about women abandoning emotionally vulnerable men. One of my friends sent screenshots. I saved them without commenting. Then came the coincidences. Friday morning, Ethan appeared at my favorite coffee shop. Saturday afternoon, he showed up in the same grocery aisle. Monday night, I saw his car at my gym, even though I had changed my workout schedule after the breakup. That night, he approached me near the water fountain. He looked exhausted, but something about it felt rehearsed. Oversized sweatshirt, messy hair, perfectly arranged vulnerability. I'm not trying to pressure you, he whispered. I just need you to understand that I was hurting. I screwed the cap back onto my water bottle. Hurting isn't a free pass to hurt other people. His expression changed immediately. So now, I'm some monster because I was honest. No. You became a problem when honesty only mattered if it forced me to beg. His eyes widened like I'd slapped him. I turned around and walked away. And for the first time, I noticed something strange. Life was getting easier. The strange part was how quickly my body understood what my heart had refused to admit. I started sleeping better, eating on time, breathing without checking the emotional weather in my own house. I finished the operations certification I had postponed for months. I worked as a logistics supervisor for a regional medical supply company. And that certification put me directly in line for a promotion. My home slowly started feeling like mine again. But Ethan moved from sad to strategic. He emailed our wedding planner, pretending he was only checking whether I had cooled off. The planner replied politely and copied me. Within an hour, Ethan messaged me. Now, vendors know our private business. Are you happy humiliating me? I wrote back. They know a contract was canceled. That same night, he appeared outside my townhouse at 1040 p.m. He sat on the curb wearing the same hoodie again. I watched him through the camera for nearly 20 minutes before stepping onto the porch. He stood too quickly. I knew you'd come out. I came out because my neighbors sleep here. His eyes looked genuinely red this time. I said I was sorry. He whispered. How much more pain do you need from me before it's enough? That sentence emptied the last sympathy from my chest. Even his apology made me sound cruel. This isn't about getting pain from you, I said. It's about refusing more of mine. He stepped closer. Then came the truth. I just thought, if you really loved me, you'd fight harder. I stared at him. You were going to marry me. And you were still testing me. He cried again, but I was done. I told him to leave. When he didn't, I called the non-emergency line and said my ex-fiancé was refusing to leave private property. He marched to his car before I finished the sentence. The next morning, my mother called, not because Ethan had contacted her, because Ethan's mother, Denise, had. Apparently, Denise told my mother I had abandoned her son in a fragile emotional state. My mother asked only one question. What exactly did he say to you? I repeated it word for word. She went quiet. Then she said, Honey, that man does not need a wedding. He needs consequences. A week and a half later, Ethan crossed a line I never imagined he would cross. He came to my office. He told reception he was my fiancé, and that there had been a family emergency They buzzed him through before anyone checked with me. I was in a Tuesday planning meeting when the conference room door opened, and there he was, holding a white bakery box like the scene was supposed to end with forgiveness and soft music. Everyone looked at me. He smiled weakly. I just need 5 minutes. I stood up. You need to leave. Vivienne. Please. I brought your favorite. I don't care if you brought oxygen. Leave. My manager, Brent, stepped in. Immediately. Security walked Ethan downstairs while he cried about me punishing him for being depressed. Brent asked if I needed the afternoon. I said no. Then, I went straight to HR and documented everything. An hour later, Ethan emailed my work address. The message was apology, braided with blame. He said he had never felt pain like this. He said I had stripped him of dignity. He said real partners did not abandon each other when one person was spiraling. He said coming to my job was the only way to reach me because I was being emotionally cruel. I forwarded the email to my personal account and stayed silent. That night, an urgent care nurse called. Ethan had listed me as his emergency contact after a panic episode. I asked if he was in danger. The nurse said no. Stable. Upset. I said, I'm not the correct contact anymore. 30 minutes later, Ethan texted from a new number. I hope you can sleep knowing you left me alone in pain at a clinic. That was the first message that made me truly angry. Not sad, not guilty, angry. I took screenshots and sent everything to an attorney my cousin recommended. The next morning, I paid for a formal cease and desist letter. It didn't stop Ethan. It only changed his angle. For about 48 hours, everything went quiet. Then his sister Rebecca called, saying Ethan was shattered, embarrassed, barely getting out of bed, and that I was making this uglier than necessary. I told her I was not the one appearing at homes, offices, gyms, clinics, and restaurants. She went silent. Even she knew the facts sounded bad when said plainly. Then, Ethan started using burner accounts. He commented under old photos of us. Hope the new guy was worth it. I guess some vows mean nothing, even before they're spoken. He messaged Marin, a physical therapist I had met through a friend's birthday dinner, asking if she felt comfortable getting involved with a woman who discarded a mentally struggling man. Marin forwarded me the message with one line. I assume this is your ex. 2 days later, I went on an actual date with her brother, Adrian. We got tacos. Talked like adults. No tests. No coded threats. No emotional traps disguised as vulnerability. Somehow, Ethan found out. That Friday, he appeared outside the restaurant before dessert. He was wearing the navy shirt from our engagement photos. He walked up to the table and said, "So this is how little our life meant to you." Adrian looked at me once and stayed calm. I stood up. Ethan. Leave. He laughed loudly enough for nearby tables to turn. You replaced me in 2 weeks while I was falling apart. Then he reached for the water glass beside Adrian's plate and tipped it across the table. Not cinematic, just ugly. The manager called police. Ethan tried tears again. But this time, there were witnesses. The office visit, the cease and desist, the fake emergency contact stunt, the burner accounts, the restaurant scene. All of it had formed a pattern too visible to ignore. He received a criminal trespass warning from the restaurant, and a clear instruction not to contact me again. Monday morning, I filed for a protective order, and for the first time since he said loving me was too heavy, I stopped wondering whether I was being cruel. I was finally protecting myself. 3 weeks later, we stood inside a courtroom. By then, I had stopped hoping Ethan would suddenly understand what he had done. I only wanted peace. I arrived carrying a thick folder. Inside were printed text messages, email headers, screenshots from my security cameras, copies of the cease and desist letter, HR documentation from work, the restaurant incident report, and a timeline I had carefully assembled because chaos becomes slippery when you don't pin it to dates. Ethan arrived looking nothing like the man who had screamed outside a restaurant. He wore a cream-colored sweater and dark slacks. He looked calm, Soft, almost fragile, like someone attending Sunday brunch. For one dangerous second, I remembered why I had fallen in love with him. Then, I remembered the office, the gym, the clinic, the fake emergencies, and the feeling disappeared. His attorney chose the gentle approach. He used words like grief, misunderstanding, emotional dysregulation, wedding stress, closure. He described Ethan as a heartbroken man, processing a devastating breakup. My attorney didn't complicate things. She simply said, "He verbally ended the relationship." My client accepted his words. Since then, he has repeatedly appeared at her home, workplace, gym, medical facility, and restaurant. He used alternate phone numbers. After being blocked, he contacted colleagues and third parties. Pain does not create permission. The judge listened quietly. Then she looked directly at Ethan. "Do you deny sending the clinic message?" His eyes immediately filled with tears. I had been abandoned during a vulnerable moment. The judge nodded once, then asked, "Do you deny entering her workplace under false pretenses?" He swallowed. I only needed compassion. Then she picked up one of the printed messages and read it aloud. "I just thought if you really loved me, you'd fight harder." The room became completely silent. Even Ethan's attorney lowered his eyes. The judge looked at him for several seconds before speaking. "Mr. Mercer, relationships are not endurance tests." Another pause. "The petitioner is not required to prove love by tolerating escalating contact after a breakup." Then she granted the order, 1 year, no contact, no third-party contact, 300 feet from my home and workplace. Just like that. It was over. Or at least, legally. It was. Outside the courtroom, Ethan's mother was waiting. Denise looked exhausted, older somehow, as if the previous months had aged her. She stopped me in the hallway. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I should have stopped this sooner." I saw genuine regret in her face, and for the first time, I realized she had probably spent months trying to manage him too. I simply nodded. There wasn't much else to say. My company took the order seriously. Reception received his photograph. Security received copies of the paperwork. HR instructed me to report any indirect contact immediately. And something strange happened. Instead of feeling dramatic, I felt protected. For weeks, I had felt like I was the only person treating his behavior like a problem. Seeing a judge put boundaries into writing changed everything. Suddenly, I wasn't imagining it. I wasn't being cruel. I wasn't abandoning someone. I was protecting myself. The consequences reached Ethan quickly. During the investigation into his office visit, my company contacted his employer, pretending to be someone's fiancé to gain access to a secured workplace. Apparently doesn't impress corporate management. His contract position with a boutique marketing firm quietly disappeared. His social media changed almost overnight. Gone were the dramatic heartbreak quotes. In their place appeared vague posts about healing, self-discovery, and surviving emotional cruelty. I blocked what I could, ignored the rest. And life became wonderfully boring. My promotion came through. Regional operations lead. A bigger workload. A better salary. Completely worth it. I repainted the guest room and transformed it into a real office. Sold the unused wedding decorations online. Donated the acrylic signs and table numbers. I kept the wedding binder for a while. Then one rainy Saturday, I threw it away and felt almost nothing. That surprised me. Not because I hated Ethan, but because I no longer carried him. Adrian and I continued seeing each other, slowly, carefully. He said what he meant. I said what I meant. Nobody tested anyone. Nobody weaponized pain. Nobody expected suffering to prove devotion. Sometimes the peace still felt suspicious. After years of emotional storms, calm felt unfamiliar. 1 month after the hearing, my mother sent me a text message, completely out of nowhere. "Pain isn't love, baby. And love isn't supposed to feel like a trap." I saved that message. Because she was right. What I learned from all of this is simple. Some people use pain like both a knife and a shield. They hurt you with it, then hide behind it when you bleed. They call cruelty honesty. They call tests devotion. They call your boundaries abandonment because accountability sounds uglier. But pain, even real pain, does not excuse manipulation. It does not turn harassment into romance. It does not turn humiliation into healing. And it certainly does not turn obsession into love. The moment Ethan told me loving me was too heavy, he unknowingly revealed exactly how he intended to carry our future, by making me responsible for every feeling he refused to manage himself. For years, I picked up that weight, until one Thursday night, when I finally put it down, and once I did, I discovered something I never expected. Peace was lighter. Adrian and I are still together today. Sometimes we sit quietly on the couch, each reading our own books. No arguments, no tests, no emotional riddles. Just peace. And after everything I survived, peace feels like the greatest love story I've ever known.